moderating this panel. I'm joined here today with two exceptional colleagues. We have Ambassador George Pagoulatos with us, who's the Greek ambassador to the OECD. He will speak to us about the Greek efforts to protect childhood from AI risks and also to embed AI responsibly within education systems. And to my left, we have Ms. Leanda Barrington-Leach, the executive director of the Five Rights Foundation, who's really a leading voice making sure that children rights and children principles are embedded in AI design and AI deployment. So our topic, children, is personal to, I think, many of us in this room. I often think about how our children are growing up in a reality where AI is already embedded in our homes. AI is embedded in learning systems, as we will hear shortly. AI is starting to be embedded even in friendships, in family relationships. The list goes on. So really, I want us to remember that the choices that we're making today about how these systems are being designed, how they're being deployed, how they're being governed, are not only defining what the world looks like, that the world that our children will inherit will look like, but also what our children are able to do in that world. So I think hopefully most of us would agree that AI governance should protect and empower our younger generations, and the challenge is about translating that principle into practice, right? We've heard that before many times. I do think there have been some good initiatives in the past years, even in the US. I don't know why I said even. In the US, there's been bipartisan legislation recently proposed trying to protect minors from harmful interactions with AI chatbots, for example. Greece had the kids' wallet for age-appropriate verification, and even in the private sector, we've seen initiatives from organizations like Character AI that are really restricting the access of minors with AI systems like virtual companions. So I'll hold it there because I'm sure you want to hear from our wonderful speakers. We can kick off a conversation with a question that I have framed for both of you. So I want to hear, when you look at this moment today, what is the single most important priority we must get right now so that AI can genuinely support rather than undermine children's safety and well-being? And Leanda, maybe since you're on my left, you can go first.
Thanks, Niki. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I think you already said that now is a really, really important time, and you're completely right. The decisions that we make today are really going to shape, children's experience within our lifetimes, but also, for many generations to come. I think a starting point is to say that, I think we can all agree that tech is amazing. Kids think tech is amazing. There's so much, opportunity and things that they can do, and generative AI in particular falls in this category, but what we can also be very clear about is that we've gotten an awful lot wrong over the last 20-25 years as concerns children and technology. And we have really allowed very much ungoverned commercial innovation to completely upend childhood with very evident and devastating consequences. This is something, the rapid rise of tech innovation has really benefited my generation, our generation, and it has not so much benefited children. And we like to ignore this, but it's really, really a generational injustice and one that we need to right. And indeed, as you said, it's for this reason that Greece and your Prime Minister in particular is very strongly championing regulation to put a halt to this downward spiral of child exploitation. Right now we really have to learn the lessons of the last 20 years, and in particular as regards AI and kids. I just want to read a few stats from recent research by our partners at the Center for Countering Digital Hate. If you haven't read their report on ChatGPT, then I recommend that you do. But using avatars, which is a methodology developed by Five Rights, I'd like to say, within a few minutes, they got around very basic safety safeguards on ChatGPT simply by saying that this is for a presentation, so school presentation. And within 2 minutes, their child avatars were advised on how to safely cut yourself. 40 minutes, it listed pills for overdosing. Within 65 minutes, generated a full suicide plan and goodbye letters. 20 minutes for restrictive dieting plans. 40 minutes for appetite-suppressing medication. 12 minutes for giving dosages for mixing drugs. I could go on and on. There's a lot there. But I think, it's quite safe to say that this stuff is, is pretty risky. It is not designed, with safeguards for kids. And as I say, we really we should have learned the lesson over the last 20 years that the tech that we have rolled out has not really benefited children, but we seem to be incredibly slow. Only now are we really talking about social media. When we see exactly the same things in gaming, we see exactly the same kind of persuasive, manipulative, addictive design techniques in AI and indeed in the tech that is used in classrooms. So what do we need to do now? We do have some of the answers already. Over this time, we've also seen what can work. And in the UK, the age-appropriate design code under data protection law was the first to show how a basic product safety due diligence approach, asking the right questions, setting clear criteria, testing, and being held accountable for choices made can work indeed to make the internet a safer, fairer place for kids. So in our rush to adopt AI, we really, as I say, can't repeat the same mistakes of the past on a much grander scale at this point. So we need to remember, first and foremost, what is important. And here, our children's health, their development and well-being must be top of that list. And then we need to indeed take a moment to envision the future that we want and set in place the guardrails that will steer tech innovation to delivering on this vision. So indeed, like you said, it's a question of choice, and the choices are coming right now, and they will determine not subtly, but really radically what childhood will look like and what the future will look like. So yeah, we better make the right choice.
Thank you for that. Ambassador Pagoulatos.
So thank you so much, Niki. The protection of minors online has been a huge priority. It was such a priority that it was the main theme of our Prime Minister's speech at the United Nations General Assembly in 24. It doesn't just end in a speech. It was the beginning of a series of initiatives which included the kids' wallet that you mentioned, initiatives creating coalitions in the European Union to establish the kind of safeguards that are necessary. Because we have two options. One is, it is given that our children are growing up in a supercharged, accelerated technological development environment. And there are very few means through which we can protect them unless there is coordinated, supranationally coordinated governance action. We need to combine technological innovation with very strong governance guarantees. This is what we have tried to do in Greece. The priority has been responsible and human-centered integration in AI. Exactly in order to address the fact that Leanda also mentioned, that the digital systems hugely affect the way in which our children grow, the way in which they socially interact, even their perception of their self. But by the same token, intervention in the environment in which children are exposed to social media, and particularly AI, can drive this to the direction that is desirable. So we have introduced a partnership with OpenAI in order to make sure that the children at school are introduced to AI in a way that allows them to use its positive opportunities by minimizing the negative effects. This is an environment that is guided by the principle of empowering and not replacing the child, and not replacing the teacher in this process. It is teacher-centered as an environment. It must expand opportunities rather than increase inequalities, which is a huge result of the rapid expansion of tech platforms. And it is a strategy that is focused on 3 pillars, and let me name them briefly. Digital competence is a fundamental life skill. We want our children to be able to navigate in a world of supercharged, accelerated technological development. We need them to be able to handle AI in a way that is responsible and in a way that protects their human rights and their need to develop as mature personalities that are able to read through AI content, that are able to reflect, that are able to build judgment. And we've done that through initiatives such as introducing skills labs at schools, where about over 1.3 million students have been trained into using these abilities in a way that is effective. Inclusion and equity, the divides that AI technologies develop also have to do with empowering those who start from a more privileged stance, leaving behind children with learning disabilities, children who come from unprivileged environments. So we have paid particular attention in strengthening special education schools. 17,000 assistive technologies have been deployed across schools in the countries in order to facilitate and create accessible learning environments, and digital tutoring platform has been active in teaching close to 150,000 students. And third, responsible governance. The approach to AI is driven by an ethical understanding of what we expect AI capabilities to be the framework within which they operate. It is about transparency, it's about fairness, it's about accountability, it's about strict safeguards for the children, and it's about keeping the teachers at the center of this process in monitoring and securing and empowering the students to be able to make the most of the opportunities, the learning opportunities that AI creates.
Thank you, and thank you for already sharing with us. I think this is something I wanted to ask you about. I know when I first heard the news, I'll be honest, about Greece piloting ChatGPT in schools, I was both excited but also kind of nervous because I didn't know what the guardrails that were put in place by the government to make sure that this was done responsibly. So if I may, I just have a few follow-up questions for that. When Greece was launching this partnership with OpenAI, were there specific non-negotiables or red lines that you discussed with them and even agreed with in order, as you said, to make sure that this is done in a responsible way with proper governance measures? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So data protection, rights protection, teacher at the center, and an environment where these safeguards are guaranteed and part of the design of the framework. This is an experiment which is operating in a pilot scheme of 20 schools involving about 250 professors, teachers. The teachers are being trained to begin with, and then they train the students. It is an environment that is safe by design, and it could not be any other way. By the way, Greece is not the only country that is experimenting on that. Estonia is doing something similar, and we intend to be launching a kind of a first readout of the initial results from this experience at the OECD with Estonia sometime in spring. By the way, the first results are quite encouraging. Students learn to use these tools in a way that is structured. They learn to channel their curiosity in ways that are constructive, that build on not just in terms of broadening their education, but broadening their critical capacities, their ability to discern what is right and wrong, their ability to reflect on content. And they do so in a way that is always led and monitored and guided by the teacher. So far, the results are optimistic. And of course, the most important, perhaps, advantage of that is the pedagogical opportunities that AI technologies entail. The fact that you can have individualized tutoring, you can have a monitoring of the performance of the student in a way that enforces their strengths and addresses their weaknesses in a way that is scalable to an extent that no other technology would have done in the past. So the ability to launch individualized tutors, especially for students with weaknesses, is one of the great empowerment capacities and promises that this whole experiment entails.
Leanda, to bring you into the conversation, when you hear about this example of a government piloting frontier AI, is there a specific question that comes to mind that you want to ask either the policymakers or the tech providers, or maybe both?
Thanks. I have lots of questions. I'm going to try and limit myself to two, which are interlinked. I mean, I think first of all, before I go there, just to say that I think the ambition and the vision like that Greece has, that Estonia has, is all very understandable, and very noble, let's say. And I think also. The fact that teachers are very optimistic is also, something that we've seen in general with the rollout of education technology. Teachers, they're working for the future. They're, excited about, bringing about new developments and things. So I think all of this is very good. But as I say, we've got to ground ourselves, I think, in reality and at what we have learned from the past rather than, broad promises, or at least we should take them with a very large pinch of salt. So my question. Two questions, but interlinked, don't worry, are essentially the same, but one around safety and one around educational, benefits. So first of all, on safety, as I say, the system, the OpenAI ChatGPT system is very highly risky. We know that, it's very obvious. And when I at least look at the materials for OpenAI education, there is nothing really there that reassures me that extra safeguards have at least until now been put into place, and I don't see anything about real safety testing and things. So I guess the question, which would be for the company and for anyone who is deploying this in particular in schools, is indeed what processes have you put in place, what guarantees do you have to ensure the system is safe, and how will you hold the company accountable if it's not? And linked to that, in terms of pedagogy, so educational benefits, as I say, we have thousands of years of knowledge about how we can educate our children. And of course, it's a subject of permanent debate because it's so important. But some of the things that we know are, for example, that children learn through mirroring. They learn through mirroring real human behavior, whether that's verbal or a whole plethora of non-verbal cues. We know that we learn from active experience and not passive consumption. We know that children learn, through challenge and failure, right? And the fundamentals of a lot of this technology is exactly the opposite of that. The fundamentals are indeed personalization, sycophancy. You are right, encourage more, let me make it easy for you, let me, this is not, social pressure, this is not, okay, social pressure sounds negative, but it can be positive. This is not, social settings, mirroring, failure. It's not that, because it's not designed by educators, right? It's not designed by educators. So my question would be, what are the demonstrated benefits for learning of these tools? Not the, idea, the promise, I get the promise, but what are the demonstrated benefits? And similarly, what are the processes you've put in place? What are the guarantees, and how will you hold them accountable to those benefits? So I think those are questions we should all be asking ourselves.
And unfortunately, I see Anush here that is already telling us we have no time. So I don't know if this is a save or what it is, but George, I'm not sure if you have to address all these questions. I'm going to try to wrap up so I can let both of you have some final comments. The Five Rights Foundation has recently published in the last couple of months, if I'm correct, Leanda, the Children in AI Design Code. And that really pushes to have a children-centric approach at every stage of the AI life cycle. So as Leanda was saying, all the way from the design stage to the deployment stage and beyond. So to wrap up, maybe, and a forward-looking question as well. If you, over the next 5 years, how do you envision AI actually shaping children's lives? To what Leanda was saying, through what you're seeing right now, what do you forecast? And if you could pick, say, one safeguard, what safeguard would you believe is the most essential to ensure that children actually do benefit from these technologies and hopefully are not harmed? Ambassador Pagoulatos, do you want to go first?
First of all, the safeguard is a strong governance framework. This is what we're talking about, and it aims to address the risks that you very validly have expounded. And by the way, we're talking about a process that improves constantly and can only improve under governance frameworks that are tight, that are vigilant, and through the experience of teachers in pointing out the weaknesses, in pointing out the occasionally sycophantic way in which ChatGPT addresses questions, and also the fact that it should be the objective of this being used in order to incite imagination rather than to give boilerplate responses that do not have the same effect. All these are improvable, and we do not live in a world where technology is inexistent, and therefore these are questions that we need to face, and the question is whether we'll face them through a vigilant governance-oriented approach, or we just let things happen as they are, which will mean that there will be children who will be protected by their families, by vigilant teachers, and others who will be left behind because their parents are very busy or their schools are not very well equipped, which will be have an effect of growing inequality. So the future that we see is one that should be driven by a vigilant governance framework. It is one where AI can build competences, the kind of digital competences that are necessary to navigate the challenges of the following decades. Skills which include not just the ability to develop AI, they have to do with judgment, they have to do with emotional intelligence, they have to do with the ability to tell right from wrong, from a strong value-based background, which should be cultivated as part of this education, accelerated through the capabilities of AI, critical thinking, and responsible digital behavior. So I guess Athena's all overlooking us out there. If they were to suggest a path forward, it would be a path of taking advantage and welcoming the technological innovation opportunities, but also at the same time remaining very vigilant about the risks and making sure that they don't materialize through a very constraining governance framework that safeguards the context in which students develop.
Great, thank you. And Leanda, do you have some final remarks as well?
Thank you. I think, like you, George, I'm very optimistic. I think, from here, if we can manage to make the right choice and reset, some of the premises of tech and how it's being integrated into our children's lives and schools in particular, it can get a lot better and can be very exciting. So I very much hope in the next 5 years things will get a lot better. What we need to get there is really to take, the commercial interest out of childhood. We need to take kids out of the AI race, and I think there is, a very real possibility to do this globally, to have global standards. It's the one issue where we can get consensus all the way from the US to China, across Europe, and well beyond. It's the one issue, and if we can do it for kids, then we can see where we go from there. And for that, very practically, we need to enforce the rules that we have here in Europe. We have, some really good things with, among others, the Digital Services Act, the AI Act, which has some good provisions. And we have, you mentioned, the Children AI Design Code, but we have some really detailed protocols now that can sit under this regulation. So we have the process that can, be used to enforce regulation, that can be used to have procurement codes, for tech use in schools, so that indeed we don't just dump things there and then see what happens, and then, let's come back in 10 years and discuss, but actually, take a child's rights, a safety, in this case, educational benefits by design and default approach. So essentially, we have the tools. Again, it's a choice to be made, and it is a choice, right? There is commercial interest on the one side, and there are societal interests and children's rights on the other side. We have to make that choice, and in 5 years' time, I hope we'll be back discussing, indeed, on that basis, all the new exciting technology that is advancing children's well-being.
Cheers to that, and thank you both. I really appreciate your comments, and I hope our audience did as well. I liked what you said here at the end, that there is an opportunity. I also see it in different international fora for us to work together to get this right. So I hope we're able to do that in the next couple of months.